Hi, today we will deep dive into everything you need to study for the AZ900 Microsoft Azure Fundamentals exam. This course covers Microsoft's latest syllabus update, fresh as of January 2024. We've already discussed what to expect in the exam, how to book your exam, and study references in the previous video. Now let's tap into my experience and explore important topics for the exam. There are 3 learning paths for each exam. Each learning path has 3 to 4 modules. We'll dissect them in detail. A separate video with practice questions for each path is coming up. So subscribe for the updates and feel free to pause, take notes, or slow down as needed. Let's get started. The first learning path is Describe Cloud Concepts. This will be 25 to 30% of the exam. There are 3 modules. The first is Describe Cloud Computing. In this first module, you will study about cloud computing. Speaking of cloud computing, you can watch my previous video on the basics of cloud computing. Then comes the shared responsibilities. You will be studying about infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. This is quite an important topic and we'll come back to this in a minute. The second is cloud models, like private cloud, which means you have to purchase your hardware and take responsibilities for the hardware maintenance, but you have complete control over your resources. And the public cloud, which is paying for what you use. In the public cloud model, you don't have to manage hardware or expenditure, even though you don't have complete control over resources and security. On the other hand, a hybrid cloud is a mixture of private and public clouds. There is also multi-cloud, where you would have multiple cloud providers and manage resources in both environments. Then comes the consumption-based model that involves CapEx and OpEx. CapEx means the upfront cost to purchase items like data centers. OpEx is your running cost. The cloud models only have the running cost, that is OpEx, and it will be pay as you go, so you would only pay for what you use. The next module is Describe the benefits of using cloud services. We will study high availability, referring to having high uptime. Scalability means scaling up, adding more resources, or scaling down, decreasing the resources as and when needed. And this is also an important topic. Scalability comes in varieties of vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. Vertical scaling adds or removes resources to the virtual machine like CPU or RAM. Horizontal scaling is to add or remove the virtual machine or containers. Next comes reliability, which means the ability to recover from failures. Predictability predicts cost and performance. The next one is to describe the benefit of manageability in the cloud. Managing the cloud can be done through web portal, command line interface, CLI, using API, or using a PowerShell. The third module in this first learning path is Describe Cloud Service Types, and this is crucial to understand. This graph from Microsoft may look complicated, but I'll make it easier for you. On the left side, you see that SaaS, Software as a Service, PaaS, Platform as a Service, and IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service. The dark blue box means the customer's responsibility, and the light blue box means Microsoft's responsibility, or you can say cloud's responsibility. A mixed color box is the shared responsibility between you and the cloud provider. For example, the access type of responsibilities like information and data devices, deciding which device you want to give access to your model, and managing your accounts and identities are always customers' responsibilities. Things like physical host all the structures and physical network data are always cloud providers' responsibilities, and the rest of the responsibilities will vary based on which system you choose. If you are choosing private, everything would be your responsibility. Another example is that the cloud is responsible for the operating systems in SaaS and PaaS, but in case of IaaS, the operating systems are the customer's responsibility. And for applications and network controls, it is the cloud's responsibilities for SaaS and customer's responsibility for IaaS. And you'll see more examples like this in this module. With this, we have finished the first learning path. Now let's move on to the second learning path, which is describe Azure architecture and services. This learning path is about 35 to 40% of the total exam and has 4 modules. The first is describe the core architectural components of Azure. You will learn about Azure accounts, subscriptions, resource groups, and resources. And this is also an important topic to understand. This diagram from Microsoft will help you understand it better. Each account can have multiple subscriptions. Each subscription will have multiple resource groups. Groups of multiple resources can be VMs, that is virtual machines, SQL, and containers. Now, coming to the physical structures like region availability. In one region, there can be multiple availability zones, and each availability zone is made of one or more data centers with independent power, cooling, and networking. Most regions are paired with another region within the same geography at least 300 miles away to replicate resources across geography. By doing so, it reduces the interruptions because of any event such as natural disaster, power outage, etc. And this is called a region pair. This diagram from Microsoft will make it more clear. So overall, a geography can have a region pair and there will be multiple regions within the region pair. The second module is describe Azure Compute and Networking Services. You will learn that virtual machines are like physical computers that you can customize and scale as you need, and you will have total control over your operating system. You can run custom software, but the difference would be this is like your virtual computer which you can access via the cloud. The VM scale set lets you create and manage a group of identical balanced VM availability sets that help you build a more resilient, highly available environment. You can be on your Mac and you can access your Windows 10 or 11 using a virtual desktop. With containers, you can run multiple containers on a single physical host or virtual host, and you don't need to manage the operating system. The difference between virtual machines and containers is that containers are lightweight and more agile. You can quickly restart them if there's a crash or hardware interruptions. Functions are like Lambda functions in AWS. If you are already familiar with AWS Cloud, it is event-driven and has fewer computational time options that you don't need to spin up any virtual machine or container. You can use your function when you have a specific small job. This allows you to scale automatically based on demand. So it would be a good choice when your demand is variable and the task is short and very quick, like it can be done within a second or even less. The Azure function can be stateless or stateful. You will learn about networking, for example, the express route that provides dedicated private connectivity to Azure, and this is not connected to the internet. It's important when your environment needs greater bandwidth and even higher level of security. And you will learn about VPN and VPN gateways, high availabilities and redundant gateways, which brings you resilient capability and high availability. With Azure Express Route, you can connect to Microsoft Cloud service like Microsoft Office 365. Also read about DNS security. And this is end of the second module. And now we move on to the third module, which is describe Azure storage services. You will study about redundant storage like LRS, locally redundant storage, that your account can support both SMB and NFS file. Here in case of Azure files, it will just locally read storage that has 11 nines of durability of objects in a year. ZRS, zero redundant storage, which can replicate your Azure history data synchronously across 3 Azure availability zones and offer 12 nines over a year. Geo redundant storage is where your data is copied synchronously 3 times within a single physical location, and it has at least 16 nines over a year. You will know about storage services like Azure Blob, where your objects are stored as your file. Data migration option like your data box, which is a physical migration service that can transfer a large amount of data in less cost and is reliable as well. You will see commands like azcopy that can copy block files in your storage account. Also study about Azure File Sync. Last module of this learning path is describe Azure Identity, Access and Security. You will learn about Microsoft Sign-in, a directory service that enables you to sign in and out both from your Microsoft Cloud application or any application you develop. In addition, it can also help you maintain your own premises Active Directory deployment. You would also learn about authentication methods, and this is important in terms of security. This graph from Microsoft will clarify two-factor authentication and password in terms of security and convenience. Single sign-in SSO. It's common in organizations where multiple IDs are connected to one ID. So once you are connected to your first application, every other application is auto-connected. However, security of your first connection is very crucial, since once people have access to your first connection, they can connect to any applications. Some of you may already have came across multiple factor authentication. This requires another factor like your phone. The code will be sent to your phone and you can enter the code and open the app. There are passwordless as well, where your Face ID or fingerprint is used in order to log in. You will learn about your conditional access, which is an essential topic. This is like a multi-factor authenticator but more seamless. If we log in from the same device, your authenticated device, it will not ask you to sign in. Still, if you are signing in again from a new device, it will ask you to re-log in. Role-based access control. Instead of giving access to an individual person, you give access to a role. So you assign access level to one role and every ID inside that role will get same access. You can also provide access to the higher group for prompt processing. For example, you provide access to the resource group and all the IDs within that resource group will have same level of access. The zero trust model, what it does is, instead of thinking that all incoming traffic is good and just filtering out the bad, it assumes all the incoming requests are bad, assuming the worst case scenario, and then filters out the good ones. Defense depth is another crucial one. The layers of defense in depth. This graph will make it clear, having different levels like physical security, identity and access, perimeter, network, compute, application and data, respectively, from the top 7th level of physical security to the first level of data. This is an end to second learning path. Now we move on to the third and last learning path, that is describe Azure management and governance. This is about 30 to 35% of the exam and has 4 modules. Learning about pricing and total cost of ownership calculators, TCO, and this is also important one. Total cost of ownership compares the cost for running on-premises infrastructure as compared to how much it would cost if you used cloud infrastructure instead. The pricing calculator estimates cost for provisioning resources in Azure. Cost management looks at Azure resource cost. It creates alerts based on resource spending and budgets, and this can be used to automate the management of resources. Cost, budget, and credit alerts are sent when you reach your specified alert threshold. With tags, you can tag resources so that you know how much they are costing you by department or category. For example, by using tags, you can compare the cost between production versus the dev environment. The second module for this learning path is describe features and tools in Azure for governance and compliance. Microsoft Purview is a data governance and compliance solution that helps you get a single and unified view of your data. Azure Policy helps define who can create and manage policy so you can control your Azure resources. You can use resource log so that no one can accidentally delete your resources. The third module is describe features and tools for managing and deploying Azure resources. You will study Azure Portal, which you can access via webs, CLI, and PowerShell. With Azure Arc, you can extend your Azure compliance and monitor your hybrid and multi-cloud configurations. Azure Resource Managers enable you to create, update, and delete resources in your Azure account. This is last module. Describe monitoring tools in Azure. You will learn about Azure Advisor, which evaluates your resources and makes recommendations to improve reliability, security, and performance, achieve operational excellence, and reduce costs. Azure Service Health lets you know the overall status of Azure. It enables you to know about Azure status, Service Health resource. With Azure Monitor, you can have a platform for collecting data on your resources, analyzing the data, visualizing the information, and making actions based on the results. This is end of the last module. Good luck with your exam. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment below.